Hi, my name is Mike Lang, and I've been asked to be the host for the summer 2021 PianoSpheres Jazz Series. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce you to Gerald Clayton. He's an amazing pianist, and he has been Grammy nominated 6 times. He studied with Billy Childs, and he also studied with Kenny Barron. And he records for Blue Note and Yamaha Records, and he's worked with some amazing other people. Diana Krall, Roy Hargrove, Diane Reeves, Terrence Blanchard, John Schofield, Terry Lynn Carrington, and many, many others. He's a wonderful person. I know him personally, and his music is very special. I hope you enjoy it.
My name is David Reutzstein, and I'm the director of the jazz program at CalArts, California Institute of the Arts, where I'm a pianist and composer, and I teach at CalArts with one of the key members of the PianoSphere faculty, Vicki Ray. We've both been teaching there for a long time, and it's a terrific honor and joy to hear Gerald Clayton get so deep into the zone today. And to share this concert with him. And PianoSpheres, I've been listening to PianoSpheres concerts for a very long time, and I'm overjoyed that you invited Gerald to do this concert here today. So, welcome, Gerald.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I guess I'll start with that. It seems like you always get in the zone, you know, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's a very challenging process. How is it that you so consistently can do that? I mean, just let your ego go and just lose yourself in the moment. What do you do to get there so consistently and so quickly?
Wow. I suppose I don't know if I completely agree with the premise. You know, the zone is it can be elusive for sure. Yeah, I think, you know, I suppose some people say that some folks love the music and some folks love the gig. You know, I think the zone is in the music probably more than it is in the gig. So really just putting your focus on the music and trying to serve the music as best you can, trying to be a vessel for that sort of magic thing happening in the air and sort of letting it pass through you. That's the goal. And but yeah, I wouldn't claim that I get it every time for sure. You know, and also that thing of, you know, capturing a bit of magic, but then holding on to it. That can be very elusive too. The sort of either your ego gets in the way or something. Focus is hard to keep. And some of the great masters that we know and love, that's one of the things that they do so well is their focus is really clear. So I think. As far as preparing for this type of a setting, trying to emotionally prepare and mentally prepare is almost as important as preparation on the piano and just the craft of the instrument. You know, whether that's some meditation or something to sort of really clear your mind and not let too many other nerves or energies distract you, you know. But again, it's just a North Star that we shoot for, but I wouldn't say that I get it every time.
Well, from the outside, you clearly do. So you mentioned preparation for a solo piano concert like this. At this point in your career, did you have a set list in mind, or did you have just kind of a list of possible tunes that you decided on the spur of the moment what to go to? Can you describe how you put that together?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. It's sort of a list of tunes of some repertoire that I know I can return to, sort of things that I love, tunes that I just think of, songs that speak to me that I feel like getting into, that I can use for various vibes, grooves, feelings, and emotions and attitudes, and just having them kind of floating above and available. But I think one of the benefits of that solo context is that you really do have a blank canvas, and trying to take advantage of that and be free to sort of open things up and patiently await you know, what comes next and what it's telling you to do. So yeah, the preparation is, like I said, mostly mental and trying to stay open to all of the tunes that you love, that yeah, I could play that too, I love this, or just finished this energy, it feels like it should go here. You know, I didn't plan on playing that, but it's cool, let's do it.
But there it is.
That's kind of the vibe, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you started the set, did you know you were going to play Konalma first?
I did. I knew I wanted to eventually get into Konalma, and I've been enjoying sort of deconstructing the piece and just the movement, the harmonic movement, everything that sort of is special about that. So I just wanted to take my time and be as patient as possible in terms of getting into it, And it's a tune that I've played a lot over the years. So I think also just for my own comfort and nerves, it's good to start in a place that's really familiar, that you know is solid. But that said, I disappoint myself when I sort of go back to that autopilot and that stock way that I've always been playing it. So it has to be something that is both familiar but also lends itself to sort of exploring and traveling some other places.
So that beautiful, long, exquisite rubato intro before Con Alma, were you already imagining that related to the composition, or was it kind of a separate experience?
I suppose it was separate and connected. I mean, what I do is I might look for a piece of Con Alma and just sort of put the magnifying glass on that. So in that case, it was a vamp. I think harmonically, it was coming from a vamp that I've used for years to sort of do as an interlude. And so say, okay, this is the world we're going to live in. Let's see what comes out and let's develop that and just stay there. You know, that was a lesson that Danilo Perez gave me one time. I said, man, Danilo, what are you working on? And he said, man, I'm really just trying to stay in one place, you know. So taking that concept of saying, okay, well, here we are, and let's sit there and let's see how that develops, knowing that eventually we'll get somewhere. But the actual thing that I'm developing is usually coming from somewhere in the tune. Could be melodic, harmonic, rhythmic, whatever.
But the idea of development as transformation, you know, is one of the things that I always hear in your playing. You know, even when you're staying in one place, it's not staying in one place. It's transforming, you know, which is really beautiful. There's so many parts of your playing that I've admired for so long, but the thing I really wanted to ask you about was your tone. So can you talk a little bit about how you developed that tone in the first place? How did you decide you wanted that tone? It may be so long ago that you can't remember anymore, but once you decided you wanted that tone, how did you go about getting it?
Well, I think part of it is goes back to the craft of the instrument. You know, that responsibility that we all have if we decide to sing or play. That we have to play our scales and our arpeggios and long tones, and you know, get all that sort of exercise out of the way so that we're in shape for the game and we don't have to think about those things when it comes time to express ourselves. So for me, that sort of early focus on the craft was studying European classical music, and a lot of those sensibilities still feel very present and relevant anytime I play. So I think that's part of it. But also just the musicians that I love to listen to, you know, who pull this really beautiful sound out of the instrument, out of the piano. I think, like so many other students of the music, the way to go about figuring this thing out is to kind of put your feet in the shoes of those that you admire. So that means more than just figuring out the notes that they're playing, but sort of the way they're playing it, the feeling behind it. The exact dynamic, the touch, that kind of thing. So it's really also me trying to put my feet in their shoes and the guys that I love and the sound, the tones that they produce. So I suppose that's all the work beforehand, and then you're given the stage to play and try to see what happens.
So do you still practice classical repertoire?
Some, yeah, not as focused and with the regularity that I did back in those years, but yeah, I still love classical music. You know.
Are there pieces that get you where you want to be physically?
That's a good question. Actually, no. I mean, there are, but that's actually not physically. When I'm trying to get there, a lot of times I sort of do the more boring stuff, the scales, the arpeggios, you know, really just getting my fingers moving. But oftentimes, you know, you'll be playing with a device that is coming from a sort of technique standpoint, And before you know it, it starts to speak to you musically, and then you decide to try to develop that and maybe take that in some other keys and some other places, other registers of the piano. So that when I'm thinking about getting my chops warm, usually I go there. Although they're great pieces that I've even had a chance to play, but I mean, I've forgotten a lot of that stuff too. So I would have to kind of look back and remind myself. Yeah.
Well, unless you're really maintaining it, then yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm along with that. When you were studying classical piano, did you focus on tone, or did that come later? I'm dwelling on the tone thing partially because this is PianoSpheres and kind of a piano-centric
Dig it.
Group, but it's been interesting to me with your playing for a long time, because there are a lot of great pianists who, it's not about the tone, but for you it really is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I did focus on that. I mean, I had a great teacher. Her name was Linda Buck. She taught close by in Pasadena, Altadena, and yeah, she would ask me to focus on, bringing out certain notes in the chord, right? Bring out that top note, have it sort of sit above the others, or maybe bring out the middle one more, things like that. Just, I think part of it is a lot of things with tone and everything else is an intention, right? We're just trying to be aware and be thoughtful about those things. So I had a great teacher that definitely put my mind and my ear on a lot of that. And depending on the piece, it might lend itself a lot to that specific thing, that touch, that tone. I think like the second movement of Beethoven's Pathétique Sonata was one that I really loved to play, and it sort of spoke to me. And trying to bring that out in a lyrical, sensitive way, I think that's stuck with me for sure.
So another thing that I've always admired about your playing is your orchestration. Just your voicings, your harmonic language, everything like that, but the way you use the whole piano. And I'm wondering, with orchestration, when you're playing solo piano, do you ever imagine orchestration? I mean, literal orchestration, like instruments playing, or is it all piano?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what I'm imagining, although I agree that, different parts of the piano are different parts of the orchestra, right? So if you're kind of in that warm middle register, those are cellos, and maybe all of that music that you've listened to, all the cello stuff sort of is somewhere in your body when you're bringing out whatever it is you're playing in those registers. Same with the bass, to really, maybe it's a timpani or something that you really want to bring out down here, and when you're up here, maybe that's more like flutes or birds, maybe it's coming from nature, so I definitely love that sort of mystical side of things, and thinking about that and trying to access those feelings and emotions. And at the same time, it's craft, it's really mechanics, just trying to stay safe, trying to make sure you play what you got to play, answer the calling of what the music's telling you to do. But I think when you're in the zone, then you don't have to think about all that craft work. It really just kind of is expressing the birds, expressing the warmth of the cellos, and the sort of lightning thunder of the timpanis and the bass and that kind of thing.
So another thing that I really wanted to ask you about, Gerald, in addition to your playing, you're a serious composer. I mean, you've written a lot of great music, and are continuing to write a lot of great music. Can you talk about your compositional process? I mean, just, where do you write? When do you write? How do you write?
Thanks. Yeah, I again disagree a little with the premise. I think, was it Duke Ellington who said, in order to be a composer, you just have to compose every day, right? Like, that's kind of part of that. And that's not me all the time. I don't write every day. This year, at the beginning of the year, one of my resolutions was to write something every day, just to put pen to paper and not judge the process. And it really does take you some other places. You sort of look back 2-3 weeks later and what you're able to express or what you've found, what you've discovered is different than it was on day one. So I love the process. I love sort of the discovery and all that. But I wouldn't say that I have a very defined approach, nor do I feel like that's necessarily my real identity. You know, I feel a little more like a piano player who tries to write tunes too. You know, but I take from all of the great composers that I look up to and admire, like Duke Ellington. You know, they said he wrote for the musicians in the band, and writing melodies so that Johnny Hodges could bring it out just that special Johnny Hodges way. And so then I'd say, okay, let me try to do that. Let me try to write a song with a certain musician in mind, maybe even Johnny Hodges. You know, other people I admire who might write a song that's completely, I guess you could say through composed, where like say that maybe there's a bass line that goes all the way through. So you just try to write a song with a melody and a bass note, and continue that all the way to the end. You know, yeah, there's a universe of possibilities, right? For everything a tune is, there's a universe of things that it isn't. So you can pick another thing and try it, you know, see what it's like to write a song based on a piece of poetry or yeah, you know, bird sounds. Get your Oliver Messiaen on and transcribe some bird calls, and you know, put the seagull over whatever chord you think represents water, you know, like that thing. And so I love the process. I love experimenting with it. But again, it does feel sometimes like I'm a visitor. Like I'm just trying to make something sound good. You know, just trying to put pen to paper and see what happens.
So do you usually write at the piano, or do you sometimes make a point of writing away from the piano?
I do. Yeah, that's another one of the things in the universe, right? Like, see, I think my dad has a story about writing a song and then bringing it to Johnny Mandel, and he said, "Huh, you wrote this at the piano, didn't you?" You know, and so
you can always tell.
You can always tell, right? Writing songs directly into a computer software like Sibelius or Finale, how the music ends up sounding a particular way, very different than if you put pen to paper, or if you don't write it down at all, what comes out, right? So yeah, I try to do it all. I'm in taste mode, you know. I'm just like trying everything at the buffet and see what happens.
So I mean, you mentioned Duke. You've written, one of my favorite of your albums is Life Forum.
Oh, thanks.
So did you write for those people?
I did, yeah. I was definitely thinking about the musicians on that record. I mean, those are cats that I lived with and around in New York City when I was there for 10 years, and they felt like-minded, you know, compadres in this thing. You know, we would get together and work out, just try to work out some ideas, you know, and so I definitely had them in mind. On that record, I also had the help of a producer, Ben Wendell. Yeah, and you know, he's one of those guys that is so organized and so, I mean,
yes, he is.
He comes to the jam session with parts taped for everybody. You know, it's really ready to go. So I knew he would be a good person for that role, and he helped me sort of envision the record before we went into the studio, and yeah, that was helpful compositionally as well. Yeah.
Because that one, I mean, it sounds like you wrote for those people with an overarching concept in mind, you know, of sound palette and texture. But the way that you used the musicians on that record is really masterful.
Oh, thank you.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
One thing that I've noticed listening to your music over so many years, it feels to me like endings are really important to you. Do you have any? I mean, did that ever occur to you? Because like there are a lot of pianists, jazz pianists, improvising musicians. They'll get to the end and it just kind of stops, or just kind of winds down somehow. But every ending that I've ever heard you do is really thoughtful and very deliberate, and really satisfying. You know, whether it's short or long, big or small, surprising or prepared. Is that intentional?
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it. I suppose one of the early things in the music that I really loved was tagging the ending, right? You know, at the end of Bye Bye Blackbird, bye bye Blackbird, blah, blah, and just keep going 2, 5, 3, 6
Right.
over and over. I mean,
Already.
I could live in that. Like the whole set could be 45 minutes of just that turnaround. And if you do that, then yeah, I suppose there has to be some way to get out of it, and maybe just sort of throwing it to the wind is not. It's what was all that about then? So you learn a couple of those kind of. I guess they become stock, but they're really sort of language ways of ending a song and putting those on. Trying them on for size, and yeah, I suppose I do love the ending.
But the stock ones, see, with your playing, I never get the feeling that there's any. You're aware of all of the vocabulary and the typical, I guess, cliche kind of things, but you never go there.
Wow.
It's never just the same thing that you would expect. There's always some surprise, and that, it's wonderful. It's really great to listen to.
Thanks.
Yeah. You were talking about some of the musicians that you play with. For me, as a pianist, pianists and bass players have a real special relationship, right? Can you talk about Joe Sanders? Because Joe is on almost every one of your albums, no matter whether it's large or small, different stylistic directions and all of that. And I just noticed over the years that you have something special with him.
We do. I'd love to talk about Joe Sanders. He was born a day after I was. We have this weird sort of cosmic unity there as well. And I suppose my love for the bass, or my connection to it, also is familial, and just having heard the bass from my dad as a kid. The first time I heard Joe, I heard some of that in his playing as well. It felt like it was home. It felt very comfortable. It felt like we loved the same things, we valued the same things in the music. But Joe also is, he is a challenger, I suppose you could say, a bit of a rebel, a bit of an instigator. He's not that thing about playing stock, like he's not going to let you do that, I really have come to love that quality in the social aspect of the music as well, in that feeling of uncertainty, of a little bit dangerous. When it's too safe and comfortable, it's a little boring. I kind of want somebody to challenge me, and Joe is always that. But also his ears are just ginormous. His sense of harmony, his note choices that coming from the lineage of Ron Carter, and if it's an F minor, then why not play a D? Why not play a G? Why not play a B flat? Why not play an A flat? Why not play a C? Why not play an E? Why not play an E flat? Why not play a D flat? Why not play a B sometimes too? I mean, F sharp, it's all in there, So when you have guys who bring that, it really kind of opens you up. And the fact that he's also connected to that really familial, just home base, swinging Ray Brown feel good thing that I get from my dad. We definitely have a strong connection. But honestly, I feel that about all the guys that I'm lucky to have played with all those years. Justin Brown is another person I consider family, and our connection kind of goes deep that way too, and Logan Richardson and Ambrose, all those cats, man. I'm very blessed to have a really wonderful group of amazing musicians that I admire and get to work with, and also can call really close friends.
So do you feel equally comfortable with all those folks on your own projects as you are on their projects? Because you've done just as many of their albums as you have. I mean, like your work with Ambrose, your work with Gretchen Parlato. I mean, there's a long list of people. All of Ben Wendell's stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I suppose it's case by case, but sometimes being a sideman is liberating in a way, you know. You just show up to the gig and, you know, play, whatever. You sort of, you serve a different function. Maybe your headspace is somewhere else than if you're the leader, you know, then all of a sudden you're thinking about the set, you're thinking about what you have to say on the mic and all these things. And so in some ways that's easier. In other ways it might be harder because their musical approach or philosophy or compositions are coming from a very specific place that might not be natural to you, and you have to sort of, you have to work. You have to try to kind of humble yourself to whatever is being asked of you. And even with my close friends, there are a lot of moments where I feel like I'm just getting my butt kicked. I mean, that's basically my whole time in New York that's the title, just getting one big butt whooping. And by the end of it, never feeling like I'm not getting my butt kicked, just getting used to the feeling of getting my butt kicked. So there's kind of a bit of both. There's a freedom there, but also sometimes there's a particular challenge that I might not give myself if I was the leader. You know, I might say, oh, we're not doing that. That's too hard. Yeah.
One challenge I wanted to ask you about, again, because we're talking about piano, on the High Heart record that of Ben Wendell's, there are two pianists, you and Shy Maestro, right? So talk about that a little bit. How did that change things for you, doing two pianists?
Yeah, you know, funny enough, it's not that much different, I think. You know, even if you're playing with a vocalist, it's really kind of the same as playing with any other instrument. You know, you have to keep your ears open and be really thoughtful and honest and considerate of what is being offered to the music and how you might fit in there, how you might contribute, and sometimes maybe not doing anything is the right contribution.
Right.
And in the case of another piano player, that might be it. It's a bit of, okay, you got it, now I got it, or if you're up here, then I'm down here. If you're in here, then I'm over here. But you know, Shy is another one of those like-minded cats that it's not too much of a foreign process for us. It's just honestly the harder, I guess, the more challenging part of that whole gig is just the music that Ben Wendell wrote. You know, so really all of us are at home shedding, trying to work that stuff out. And by the time we come together, we're mostly like, can I get through this safely? Okay, I did. Oh, hey, yeah, you're here too. Cool, let's play together. The social aspect of what we do is easy compared to that, I would say. Yeah.
Well, and Ben's pretty specific about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So did he actually orchestrate some of the two piano thing in advance?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of that stuff. I mean, pretty much all of that is really his vision, you know, manifested. But he also loves Joe Sanders. You know, Joe's on the gig, and just because it's written doesn't mean Joe's going to play it. And same with, you know, I take that freedom, as does Shy and Nate Wood and Michael Mayo. So it's there is that sort of balance. I think as long as we all come from a place of honestly trying to serve the music as best as possible, nobody's going to get, you know, really upset with you if you divert from what's on the page.
Well, and it feels so seamless anyway. You can't really tell what's spontaneous and what's composed.
Cool.
So, that kind of brings me to another question for you. How do you feel like the relationship for you personally, as a composer and improviser, what's the relationship between composition and improvisation? Are they the same? Are they different? How do you think about that?
I don't know. I suppose you know, Wayne Shorter said that a composition is never finished. You know, and with that kind of thinking, then a composition is sort of like an improvisation. You know, it's what you choose to paint on the page in that moment, but it doesn't mean that somehow it's set in stone in some kind of a way that's different than improvisation. And yet, you know, we have tunes that feel finished. You know, you sort of say, yeah, that's how that goes. So I suppose they are kind of different, and yet they're the same. I don't know that I've spent too much time thinking about it for myself, but it's fun to think about. Yeah.
Well, we at CalArts we had Taishan Sori as a visiting artist in the fall. Wow. A whole list of amazing people because we could invite anybody anywhere on the planet because we were remote.
Dig.
And he was talking about very consciously erasing the line between composition and improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can dig it. I mean, I hear that in the way he plays. You know, it's even when he's playing and when he's improvising, it feels compositional, right? It feels like he's making a decision that will be written in stone, that will last. I mean, everything he does has this real conviction and sense of assuredness that I admire it so much. So I think you're right that if you're creating music that way all the time, it kind of doesn't matter if it's pen to paper or if you're playing, it's with a sense of focus, honesty, and conviction.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I hear you play even solo piano, I mean, it feels like your improvisations are very compositional.
Thank you.
They're very thoughtful, and there's a shape and a direction. So your last album as a leader was the Happening Live at the Village Vanguard record that was released during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So that was your first late album on Blue Note, right? So how much, I love that record.
Oh, thanks.
It's really great record.
Thank you.
And it feels very live.
It does, yeah.
Very live. It's very spontaneous, really open. Bravo to Blue Note for really supporting that from your first project with them. Did you talk with them about it before, or was that just kind of, I mean, how did that evolve?
Yeah, no, I bravo to them for sure. I mean, they've been really supportive in a sort of free way. There was not a lot of sort of, well, we think you should do this or that. So my intention even before I signed with them was, okay, I've got 4 albums that are studio albums, and I'm happy with them in certain ways, but I also think that I haven't captured something that feels like defining. It's sort of what we do most of the time is play gigs. We play these rooms, play a small club or a medium-sized venue or a big outdoor arena. That's what our life mostly is, and trying to find a way to capture that and preserve that and have that be part of my body of work, felt like it was important and felt like it was time. And I've also just, loved. I've been a lover of the music and of the records in the lineage of the music, and so many of those are Live at the Vanguard records.
Right.
So I was dreaming of doing a Live at the Vanguard record since I was in high school, and but Blue Note is right in line with that same kind of lineage, that institution. I think it definitely made sense, and they were really supportive and super cool. So yeah, we did have a conversation before. But even if I wasn't with them, I was destined. I was going to do it. That was my plan all along.
Well, you definitely did it. It's a real landmark record, and
thanks.
I love the mix of existing compositions and original compositions, and the thing with the two horns and just trio, and just the pacing of it is really marvelous.
Oh, thank you.
It's really wonderful. So I guess the only other thing I really wanted to ask you about. I know you've done a little bit of film scoring recently. Can you talk about the MLK movie?
Yeah.
And is that something that you're really interested in? Is that something that you want to do more of?
It is. Yeah. It was my maiden voyage scoring for film, and was honored to get the call by Sam Pollard and his co-producer Benjamin Hadine, and I definitely feel like a foreigner, a visitor. It was definitely the maiden voyage. Like, all those feelings were in there. Trying to figure it out, trying to even just figure out the process. How do you do this? But I loved it. I think it's something that sort of like playing with another instrument that you've never played before. It's an invitation for new discovery, and the way that image can amplify the music in a different way, and vice versa, how the music can amplify the image in a different, is a dance that I'm excited to explore more for sure. Yeah, maiden voyage for sure. Definitely, it was new, but I
So
enjoyed
Gerald,
it.
how did they choose you for that project, since you haven't really done it before?
Yeah, I met Ben Hadeen through this Piedmont Blues project that I did,
Right.
and he wrote a piece on it. So we had a lot of time together and did this extensive interview with him, and I think it was Ben's initial idea. He heard the Piedmont Blues piece. He said, "Oh, I would love to bring you over into this world," and so that's kind of how it came about. I think just like everything else in my life musically or in my career, I suppose you could say, it's all just a result of sort of naturally playing a gig, and somebody's there and they say, "Hey, you want to play this gig?" And then you play that gig. There's not too much premeditated networking or anything like that. Yeah.
But that's the way that you hope it'll happen, right? That's what we all really want, is to be able to have someone respond to your music and say, "I want some of that."
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel the blessing of it for sure. Yeah, I think I'm lucky in that I always had a really clear-headed, positive role model in my dad, and both my parents, and they were really they really drove home the point that take care of the music, and the rest will take care of itself. Don't worry about anything else. Just do what you're doing, and do it with honesty and integrity, and so far that's worked. So I feel grateful and blessed for sure.
Well, Gerald, it definitely has worked. I mean, we all feel really grateful to you for sharing your music with us today. And like I said at the beginning, I mean, to watch and listen to you get so deeply in the zone, all by yourself, in this situation, it's really inspiring.
Thank you, David.
It's really wonderful.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right on. All right. Cool. Thanks, David.
That was great.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for Gerald Clayton's concert. As you may or may not know, these concerts are being broadcast free of charge. And if you're so inclined, PianoSpheres.org is the place to go to show your support. We would love to have you come back. And thanks for being here.